Welcome to Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery, a conversation held at the intersection of substance abuse, mental health, and everyday living. Your hosts, Mark Regala and Justin Wolf, bring both professional expertise and personal understanding to the table. So welcome to the conversation. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our 6th episode of Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. And we're here tonight, joined by a co-host, Mark Regala. Mark, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Excellent. Great to be here. I think we got a fantastic guest tonight, Eric Metcalf, who's going to share some great wisdom and knowledge about what is so critical in sustaining recovery and finding a life that's worth living in terms of finding a purpose down this path. And so, Eric, thank you for joining us this evening. It is a pleasure to have you. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me. Appreciate this.
Awesome. And we appreciate you, sir, because you are going to be giving voice to such a powerful topic that when we talk about the why do people pursue recovery? What is that thing that I'm going to attach my journey to that's going to make it worth it in the end? It's that sense of purpose, because we know the pain of what we experience internally when we don't feel like we're carrying one, or we feel like we've gotten off that path, or we're feeling lost. And so really harnessing this journey that you went on and succeeded in finding that purpose. I'm just really thrilled and really kind of sitting on the edge of my seat tonight, waiting to hear what you got to share with us, sir. So Eric, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing with us your story about your journey to finding purpose, sir.
Sure, not a problem at all. Thank you. Thank you again, Mark and Justin, for having me. One thing that I have to really say up front is that as much as I deviated from my purpose found me. I wouldn't necessarily say I found my purpose, but because I did a lot of things that were really not on the path of recovery. There was a lot of weebly wobbly times, but my purpose kept finding me. And once I yielded over to that and surrendered, that's when, you wake up and you're raring to go. You're ready to get on the battlefield. You want to go do the work. That's when you know that you are really walking in your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that feeling really resonates there. It's like, I've got it now.
Definitely, yes. And as a veteran, U.S. Army vet, being mission focused is necessary for me. That's how I live my life. I set goals. I set short-term goals, long-term goals. There's always a mission. And so once I understood more about my own mental well-being, I was able to educate myself, gain some knowledge, share, because you only heal what you reveal. So I had to share, and that was a hard thing for me, being a veteran, being a very, very hua, I would say, veteran, that we don't do soft and fuzzy, warm, all that sharing, and my name is this and that. I was not open to any of that. But once I really said, well, let me open my mind to this, and maybe we can figure out what's going on, why my clock is not quite ticking right. That was a game changer. It was.
Definitely. That willingness to kind of look internally and saying, hey, like these choices that I'm making right here, this isn't really driving me where I want to be going in my life. And you said that even though you kept there were some times where you deviated off this path, your purpose would still come back and find you. Would you share a little bit about that journey of what would occur when you found yourself deviating? Your purpose would really kind of pull you back here.
I guess early on, my earliest memory of finding my purpose, or my purpose finding me, probably came about after leaving, during treatment at the VA in the north suburbs, far north suburbs. This was one treatment, probably maybe I would estimate 15 out of maybe 20 that I went to, different treatment facilities, different short-term ATP, alcohol treatment programs, long terms, Icarus program, which is a very, very highly disciplined treatment program called Icarus, based on the methodology of the whole Icarus concept and philosophy. But a lot of different treatment programs. And the one time that I do recall early on where I knew, wow, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing, was during the end of treatment, it was maybe a 60-day program or a 45-day program, and then they were going to put me into something even more long-term. I started off doing a Bible class every Saturday morning with the veterans. This was a VA treatment program. And something was brewing on the inside of me as far as building up my inner man, because I never really looked at that part of it. I just thought it was just sheer will. I just got to will myself. I'm a disciplined person. I've ran marathons. I graduated top of the class with my military training. But for whatever reason, I could not seem to get this thing as far as discipline with substances. And not knowing that I'm using substances to actually mask something else that's going on. I didn't want to really look at it that way. It was just a matter of, I can't party too much. You can't drink too much, Eric. You can't do that. You can't do this. So let's try it a different way. And every time it blew up in my face. But once that spiritual aspect of recovery hit me, and I started doing these just a little, really 3 or 4 people in a Bible class, it grew to where we had maybe 60, 75 in a room. They were coming from different buildings. That grew into something called MIA, which I like to talk about. Men in Action, No Longer Missing. That's a nonprofit veterans organization that the concept came to me while in treatment to start it, because I noticed that the veterans were really taken to, at the time, we didn't have the word peer support, but that's what it was. It was peers. We're sharing stories. We're hanging out. We're having coffee, but we're healing. We're talking about some of those traumas, and we got a dark sense of humor. So you probably wouldn't think that's what we were doing if you walked in the room, but we were, in the manner that we do that, which is kind of dark humor sometimes. And during those early days of recovery, I believe it was 2007 that we launched MIA, Men in Action, No Longer Missing. And through the mission statement, which got in the hands of somebody, they had a meeting with me. And the next thing you know, I had my very first MIA house. And these are going to be transitional living homes for veterans. So you see, it started off with just, I just want to help. I want to be here to help. And if we can just have a little Bible class and talk, that's fine. If we can do that. And I don't say little in a demeaning manner. I mean, it wasn't like anything to do with the program. It was something we did outside of the treatment program. And it grew to where we end up with 5 homes, 5 MIA houses through Wisconsin, Illinois. I ended up enrolling at the University of Wisconsin so I can learn how to start a nonprofit. I got a liaison through the city of Racine to help me as far as making sure that I'm correct legally in the neighborhoods that we're opening up these houses. And they were MIA Christian living homes for veterans. And it grew to a total of 5 homes, thriving homes, fully furnished, self-sustained homes. That was the first taste of me really knowing, oh my goodness, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And by that, during that period, I actually accepted the purpose. I didn't run from it. So we can say we find our purpose, but for me, I often ran from my purpose because my purpose meant selflessness. It meant I can't be solely focused on me anymore, but it's servitude to others. And that can be very scary for a person who has not given of himself in that way. I was a very private person. I know you wouldn't believe it now, but I never want to share my story, ever. We're not, and I would, culturally speaking, our family, the way we were raised, you don't share those things to people because you're basically showing a chink in your armor or weakness. And that's not what we do as a family. In my family dynamic, we didn't do that. So the whole sharing of yourself was kind of foreign to me. But with finding and walking in my purpose, it became healing for me. Like I said, you only heal what you reveal. And so once I started doing that, sharing my story, MIA grew. We ended up having we provided security services for different organizations like church conferences or community events because we're all ex-military. So we all was either military police or some other faction of the military. So what we did was we said that would be one way that we can grow income. because we wanted all the houses to be fully furnished and self-sustaining. And that was a unique and very special experience for me.
That is incredible. And I appreciate you sharing and kind of looking at, hey, you had to kind of go against like these rules that were kind of set for you, like from a young age, where it's like, hey, don't talk.
Yeah.
We don't share that. We don't shine a light on these things that are not like meeting the picture perfect standard over here. And I think that's what a lot of us carry with us, like these inner battles, right? It's like, hey, if we can't free those inner demons and shine a light on them and give voice to what it is that we're carrying, it just makes them stronger when we're feeding them.
Hey, I could not have said it no better, Justin. You take me to another part, because with my purpose continually finding me, things in life happens. It's life where there are pivots, there are shifts. And we did MIA for quite a while. Me and my late wife, I'll say, we started that organization and built it. And then we felt the call to move. We had did pretty good in life. We had raised our boys. They were all adult men. And we had such a setup that we knew they would never leave the nest. It was just too sweet. Yeah, everything you could imagine they had. So if we don't leave, they're never going to leave. And so we literally put an X on the calendar, and we didn't sell, because I remember there was a disagreement, I'll say. We gave away our things, all of our possessions, mostly. We really downsized, and we gave away, I probably had 3 or 4 storage spaces, house, and we literally was just handing things out the door. And we did a road trip to Virginia. We literally went to the beach, and we went to Virginia Beach. And my dream and my vision was we would continue MIA in Virginia. I'll go there and get it started there, because I never looked at it as being a local community. I wanted it to be more of a global enterprise. So I was always thinking very big. But when I got to Virginia, the organization, as far as the infrastructure of the organization back home in Illinois, it started falling apart. Different reasons, mostly involving relapses. Several of my governing body, they relapsed, from the vice president to the treasurer to all these different positions. My phone just kept going and going. And so I went back to what I know, which my background is sales, corporate sales. Corporate sales is what I did when I was deployed into with the military. I was working for the Hilton Hotel Corporation downtown Chicago, and I sold meeting and convention space. And then 9/11 happened, and that's where I ended up deployed, which I'll get back to that. But when you said the word shining a light on darkness, I ended up in Virginia, was there for, I believe, the first 2 years I worked in sales. I went back to what I know. So I went back to sales, and I worked at a company, Original Mattress Factory. Great company. I got a lot of promotions. I did really well. I learned the manufacturing and the sales side. However, I wasn't in my purpose. And my wife made a point of, at the time, letting me know that we did not go to Virginia for me to do that. We could have did that back in Chicago, right? Because we left good jobs. And so I quit. I literally quit at the apex of my career, and I walked away from it. And 5 months later, I was working for a organization called Union Mission Ministries. And I took it's the entry-level position, which is called shelter manager. And I remember during the first 2 weeks there, where you see over 300 men on the floor sleeping on newspapers, book bags. I got a scented candle on my desk, because you work the overnight shift, because I'm the bottom man coming in. So you get the grunt shift. You got to do the real. You're in the trenches. And I'm the first person that a person will see, an individual sees when they come in off the streets. So I get you your toothbrush, your toothpaste, your towels, your soap, and I get you cleaned up and get you some nice fresh gear on, and we get you bedded down. We didn't have beds. That means I show you a spot on the floor. Coming from the background I came from, it was depressing for me. I remember very vividly, and you took me to this memory, Justin. I remember going home one night, and this was my second week there, and I told my wife at the time, it's too dark. This is too dark. I don't want to do it. Why am I punishing myself doing this? I can go back and make some good money. I'm only making like, I ain't even making a quarter of the money I made here. And I'm seeing casualties of war. When I look over the candlelight, they look like men, fallen soldiers. And I'll never forget, my late wife looked me in the eye as she was putting on her makeup to go to work. She looked me in the eye and she said, I don't know what you're saying to me. I said, it's too dark. I'm quitting. I'm not going to do it. And I'll never forget it because she didn't even miss a beat. She said, light it up. Go in there and light it up. And I got goosebumps now thinking about it because I'm like, oh boy, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I am supposed to be a light where there may be darkness. We're supposed to convey hope. Let me share my story and let's light this up. So I started changing my dress because I was wearing nothing but shirt and ties every day because it's a ministry. It's so you got a lot of pastors and that's not me though. I started wearing what I got on right now, skull cap, hoodies, sweats, and we had a washing clothes party that night. We started working out in the mornings, doing walks in the parking lot. We started cleaning, lighting the place up, giving it some light and life. And that took off. And then there came several promotions after that where I was put over a program there.
What a powerful message in a short phrase. Light it up. And man, you took to that like wildfire.
And that's where I'm still, that is basically with all the pivots that I've experienced in life. And there's been several, especially after following my military deployment, servitude and sharing of my story, I found to be, it is our superpower. It's what we all have that is something that could potentially save a life. If that's not a superpower, I don't know what is. I mean, that's what Superman does, right? He swoops in and he may have all of these different supernatural powers, but if it takes a lot of courage to share your story, it takes a lot of transparency and vulnerability, but you don't know whose situation you may actually impact and alter and inspire them to say, wow, if they could do that for Mark, they could do that for Justin, if they could do that for Eric, then maybe I got a shot at this recovery thing. Because these guys, they got stories. They wasn't always a straight line. You know, they did a zig and a zag because you do zigzag with your recovery. But you make sure you shake it off and you stay on that battlefield.
I think that's such a powerful message. Like, hey, it's not like this. Like people like to think recovery is like this straight line, like you're just going up. Like, hey, once I commit, it's game up. And then life happens.
Yes.
And it catches you with a hook and a jab. And then you're like, how do I respond? And how do I pick myself back up when I fall down? Because that's really what this is all about.
Yeah. I can give you an example of that. Military. Working at the Palmer House Hilton downtown Chicago. Getting my breakfast, doing great in sales, got a great team behind me, thriving, and I'm in recovery. At the time, I had 9 months of sobriety. I was staying at a place called Safe Haven in Chicago. You may have heard of that, Safe Haven in the Chicago area. And so I remember they wanted to give me a letter to get me out of deploying. And I said no, because after seeing the towers fall that morning, I want to go. Yeah. And because I was a reservist, I only went and did duty work over the weekends and a couple of weeks in the summer. But it wasn't a day-to-day where I'm putting on a uniform, drawing a weapon. I'm a civilian and I'm a part-time warrior. So, but 9/11 happened. And I remember when I went back upstairs to my office, everyone was gathered in the hallways and they kept telling me, do you have to go? Do you have to go? Well, I don't even know what's going on yet. Everything was so discombobulated and confusing and chaotic. And then when I got to my computer, I remember looking at the monitor and there was a note, call the Armory. I called the Armory. A couple of weeks later, I'm getting ready to get a new MOS in Fort Stewart, Georgia. This is life. Life happens. Yeah. I'm no longer in my suit and tie. I'm in a uniform with a weapon now. And I was deployed and attached to a military police unit. So I spent a lot of time over there doing various things, but mostly checking for explosives, things like that, which can be very, very, I guess I would say, I don't want to say traumatic, but stressful. We'll say that when, when you're doing something like that day to day.
Yeah.
And I went over there sober. That lasted 3 months in country. I did my best because my sobriety meant everything to me at the time, and I was really thriving. But when you're with a brotherhood of other soldiers, after a while of okay, we're about to go draw our weapons, we're about to go do what we're going to do. We don't know if we're going to come back, and you start having shots in the morning. You know, everybody hold them up, hold them up. It was a brotherhood thing, and next thing you know, I'm back full blown drinking. And then it becomes a thing of now you're drinking because the days are just so long and so stressful. And you're drinking to numb that. And then you're drinking to numb this. And it's like you were never, I felt like, wow, I was doing so well. And now I'm serving my country. And now on the outside, I look like I got it together. And you don't come on the inside. I'm a train wreck. I'm a train wreck because I've lost my sobriety. And I'm losing myself too. So by the time I came home, when we did the we call it the dog and pony show, when we were at the airport, all the media was there, all the scrutiny, the cameras and everybody, because we were one of the first teams to go out. And we came back, they were congratulating us because we were going to get full benefits, the whole thing, because it was a big high profile event because we were one of the first groups to go out of Chicago. And I just remember thinking that I can't wait to get me a drink. When can we get released? I'm finished with this now. And went back to the Hilton. My transition was not good. My very first meeting, it was obvious that I did not transition back to civilian life well because I was dropping F-bombs. Because that was the way we spoke on the field. Right. And I'm like, let's get her done, squared away. And I'm doing all this. And everybody in the conference room looking at me like, whoa. What just happened? Where's Eric? Eric is here, but Eric has had an experience that now that's on me, and that's how I've survived. Now I got to switch and pivot because you all are not accustomed to that type of dialogue or exchange. Those were some of the things that caused me once I was in the VA to start MIA. Because I want to help other veterans who are coming in from overseas transition better, have the support they need to be able to make that pivot from military mindset to civilian mindset. Because when you're fresh off the plane, you can be a little bit, I remember on the plane, they made us watch Ice Age too. And I was like, why are we watching a cartoon? We just been out here talking about this and that, and we're watching a cartoon. And then they told us, gentlemen, we need you to decompress. We need you to dial it down. So we're going to watch Ice Age, and you're going to laugh, and you're going to be happy. And I'm like, what? We got weapons still with us.
But Ice Age is going to cure it all, apparently. Yeah.
I'll never forget that because we laughed. Because it stayed on us for a while. It's not an overnight thing to just let that part of you go.
Right. There's no switch that you can flip that it's all of a sudden it's like, hey, back to civilian life. I'm no longer active. Like, no, it just doesn't happen like that. That brain stays in alert mode. You're just faced with like life or death situations on a day in and day out basis out there.
And you're hyper vigilant. Your tone may have a little edge on it, even though it's nothing really. Yeah. This is just the mode of operation. This is the modus operandi. This is our MO. And when I'm moving people and testing and checking things and all of that, you take on that persona. So that took a while for that to really kind of, I guess, like Velcro, peel off or fall away from me. And so what I decided to do, finding my purpose, was let me help other veterans who are coming back in country and maybe struggling. And if they're at the hospital, we'll let them know we have these houses that we're going to be very supportive for you, that you can transition out of the hospital into one of these homes. And they're nice. I was big on making sure they were beautiful. They were lit up, very bright. I needed bright colors. I needed a lot of lighting, a lot of windows, because I know as a veteran, we can go into a real dark space, those dark spaces.
And that's huge, knowing like, hey, what you went through, what some of your challenges were, and saying, hey, how can I help another one of my brothers out here who's coming back home and support them on their journey? And so I'm wondering, Eric, if there's a specific individual that really kind of stands out to you that you were able to support and kind of give back and really light up in one of your homes there.
And yes, there were so many, because over the time of doing it, I believe I actually did that. That endeavor lasted from 2007 to about 2012. So there was a lot of time, effort, and energy put into it to grow it to 5 homes, a vehicle. We had emergency funding for guys to move in with if they didn't have any income. It was pretty solid program that we pieced together, and it was definitely a team effort. It wasn't all me. But there was one particular family that I met, and it was a family. They were white. They were out of Chicago. They were president and CEO of an organization called Circle Urban Ministries, or Circle Urban Campus, which was several Chicago, because I did my research on it before even meeting with them, several Chicago blocks big. They had school, they had lawyers, they had everything I was hoping to grow my organization into. And everything. I was so intimidated and impressed. And they called me to help with their son, who was an Air Force vet. And they heard about my veterans houses and the different things. And they said, Eric, maybe we can't help them because we're too close to it. We're not military. We're parents. Could you help them? And his name was Nate Karan. And I interviewed Nate, because you had to interview, you had to apply, and you get accepted into the house with a vote. And he was voted into the house. And in each house, all of the houses, you have your guidelines, basically. Everybody is ran very uniform, very military is how we ran it. And they're veterans, so they were able to pick up on that right away without any issues. But for whatever reason, Nate really took to me, and I took to him. And, he's a white guy, but he had a lot of swag. Nate had a lot of swag. I mean, he had more swag than me. I'm going to be honest. I was like, Nate, where you get that coat? Nate. It's like, man, I grew up on the west side of Chicago. And that's another riddle. What are you doing living on the west side of Chicago, Nate? But the family was so, I guess I would say, so in the mode of serving others that they wanted to live where they served. They didn't have to live in Chicago, but they chose to. And they did have a home in Wisconsin too, but they lived in Chicago where they served. And they built up this great organization full of doctors and lawyers and all these other individuals that really helped build it. A multi-million-dollar nonprofit organization. Well, Nate is living in one of my houses. Nate has a pit bull. The pit bull is tearing up furniture and chewing on things and doing different things. And I went against one of the rules, which was not to have pets. And I allowed Nate to have it because I wanted him to have that companionship. And I ended up having to, the dog had to go. It was either the dog go or you go, Nate. Well, you know how that works out. My dog got to go. Then now I'm angry and mad. And so there were some different things that happened to where I had to ask Nate to leave. 2 weeks later, he took his life. It hit me. You're talking about, when you say, can I recall? Yes, there was so much good that we did in helping him, but oftentimes the outcomes are not what we hope they're going to be. And when I got the call from his mom, Lonnie, who is now my surrogate mom, and I call her my little white mom, and that's what she is. And she called me to say that she found him. And when you say finding your purpose or walking in your purpose, I walked away from it at that moment, because I said, I am not here to lose. We're not here to lose a soldier. We're here to help. What am I? And I took it all on me that it's my fault, because I should just let him keep the dogs. So what, he tear up the furniture? Just let him keep the dog. And I said, why did I have to be? And then you play the game. What if you play that game? And do you know, I fought going to the funeral because the memorial service, the funeral service, they had, I believe, Alderman Danny Davis was there, all these dignitaries. It was thousands of people there. They had his uniform in the rafters and the big jumbotron. It was a big deal. That's not the place I want to be when I feel like I'm the cause of this. And my wife at the time forced me to go because she said, Eric, they ask you to say a few words because the last great memories they have is him with MIA. And I was like, well, what am I going to say? And I will never forget when I was walking through the crowd, because I was really trying to stay away from his dad, because I said, he's going to take a shot. And I was trying to decide which chin am I going to give him. I'm going to let him have it because I know his heart is broken. You just lost your son. I don't know what happened because I didn't ask all the details, but he took his life 2 weeks after I had him leave a home. And do you know, when I saw him, this is a big grizzly bear looking man, the beard, tall, he hunts. So I'm nervous, heart beating. And I said, okay, I'm gonna let him hit me. If he want to take a shot, he can have it. And so he grabbed me and pulled me in a bear hug, lifted me up off the ground and was swinging me around, holding my head into his ear, saying, thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. I'm so confused right now. So, and then after he releases me, he tells me, Eric, we slept for the first time in 20 years when he was living in your homes. And I said, oh my goodness, this wasn't his first attempt. Oh my goodness, I didn't know any of this. You didn't know. He never disclosed it to you. There you go again. There I go. Seeing myself that we don't want to share stuff. We don't want to talk. And I'm standing there in the middle of the room with all these people and he's shaking me. No, you did good. You did good. You gave us peace because we knew the standard that you were having them live by, and we didn't worry. We slept. We hadn't slept, Eric, soundly in years. I had no idea. And so when you say, which individual or what story has the greatest impact, that one did, because it took me from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And then I found myself back where, okay, I can't tap and stop this. So I put in different things in the program where we're now going to ask questions about suicidal ideations. We're now going to have a emergency crisis intervention plan in our program. We didn't have any of that before that happened. So it changed the look of what we were doing to where we're going to dig deep. And because you're in a room full of veterans, you're going to talk. If you want to stay here with us, we got to have you share. And that's the way we went at it after that happened. And they surprised me at the end of the ceremony, at the end of the services, because it was a going away service, with a check for a little under $9,000, $8,000 with all the proceeds that came in. They gave it to MIA. I was just I was speechless, wet faced throughout the whole event because I really had no clue that what we did meant that much.
And how fulfilling to have somebody else acknowledge and name just what a gift you didn't just provide their son, but you also provided that family with.
Yeah.
And just seeing that extension of like that care, that concern, and that desire to be of service to others really was felt in a way that, hey, like sometimes we can't even comprehend just how much it means to that other person.
Yeah.
I mean, looking like that impact it had on that family. Just even as you tell that story, I can tell that it's almost like this grizzly bear man is like picking you up off the ground in your seat right there.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, like that feeling, it's not going to leave.
Yeah.
Because that resonates and that reminds me, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah. There you go. That is full-fledged on purpose. You're literally living out your purpose. And lo and behold, after that during that season of time, because I was still bummed out, but I would have support, like, don't stop. We need you to keep doing this work. Don't stop. Other veterans need you. Other individuals in recovery need you. So we opened it up to not only veterans, but civilians as well. You didn't have to be a vet to get into the houses. We did open that up. We changed that. But then not long after, Glenn, who was the father, he died, transitioned from cancer. And Lonnie, who's the mom, said, "You're now my son. You're my son now." And lo and behold, when I had my face with death in the most realistic sense by losing my wife at the time, Lonnie was there for me. "I'm coming to get you, son." And so the way recovery works to me is that it connects so many different, with people, with ideas, with organizations. It connects people, and you don't even know the impact that you're having, but you don't know how you may be the one in need, and now you need to be served.
Right.
And I had a very good battle buddy of mine when I was reluctant to be served and to be helped and to take support. He told me, "Why is it that the ones who serve can't be served?" And that hit me because I was pushing everybody away. And Lonnie, Nate's mom, she came and she actually helped me out during a time of a real bad crisis that I was in.
Yeah, because I'd imagine just getting blindsided and be like, now dealing with the death of your wife and emotionally having to carry that.
Yeah. If you recall, I mentioned how I worked at the shelter. Well, not only did I work at the shelter in Virginia, the Mission, which was a 300-bed men's shelter, but it was also a 50-bed women and family shelter. And my wife, Jan, at the time, she was the intake case manager for the women's shelter. I worked at the men's shelter. So we were a team. And then as I advanced and got promotions, I could literally see her office outside of my office window. And so, yeah, and we would actually go over and teach in classes for each other's program too. So it was a real team effort that we did.
Yeah.
And we were living a dream. We were right across the street from the beach. We're living everything we dreamed to be. Retirement plan is going, career going really well, making really good friends, good relationships. The programs are thriving. The program that I was over was called David Development Program, which was for 18 to 28-year-old homeless men. And it was a 3-phase curriculum program, and it blew up to where we got a lot of funding. We did TV interviews. I'm humbled by how well the program went. And then there go life. There's one day my wife decides to put some clothes away, donation bags, and she takes a fall. And she hurts her knee. They called it a bruised patella. 5 months later, she was dead. No one could really tell me what killed her. No one could give me answers. I had lawyers, I had doctors, I had hospitals. Everybody was covering down because everybody was suspecting a major lawsuit. And so we had all of that, of course, going on with everybody calling me, but nobody could tell me what took her life. And so that changed my world. It rocked my faith, in which we were very strong in our faith and our belief. I spiraled out. I intentionally stopped being a producer. I intentionally stopped paying bills. I intentionally stopped everything because I said, no, this ain't fair. I'm checking out. Right. I'm not going to conform to what society's asking for because look what's happened to me. And nobody can, the people that are supposed to be professional and supposed to know answers and tell me things, don't even have a clue what they're doing. And I was so angry with everything that I think it was about maybe a year and a half before I even grieved. I was just running off of pure anger, adrenaline. That's what drove me. I'm going to figure this out. And my boys finally intervened and said, "Dad, if you don't stop, we're going to lose you too." Oh, wow. And that brought everything to a screeching halt. They wanted me to drop the case, stop trying to figure this out. She's gone. I probably weighed, I don't know, I'm at 185, 190 now. I probably weighed at that time 145 pounds. Wasn't eating.
Wow.
Yeah. I wasn't just existing. I had so many checks on my kitchen table from donors and things like that I didn't even open for months because I didn't care about, I'm not paying no bills. I'm not doing nothing anymore. Nothing. That's how angry I was. And so you like I said, deviating from your purpose. of course, it took, I didn't want to work anymore. I kept trying, and then the guys would start crying in the middle of a class. I got men walking through the building crying there, and I'm comforting people all day about my loss, but I'm comforting them because it's their loss too. And they're feeling for me, and I go home alone at night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to really live with it. And in turn, I slowly started stopping in a bar. I will never forget it. I started hitting the bar right around the corner from where I live. Bar had been there forever. Never was I ever tempted to go on the bar. It was a pizza sports bar. We always go and get the pizza. I never go to the bar because that's not what I do. We get the pizza and I leave. Now I noticed that one day that I sat in the bar, and before it was all done, they had my favorite glass in the bar. They all knew me by name in the bar. Several months later, I'm a regular. I'm a superstar at the bar. I come in, they get my glass out. Now, I'm hurting. That's giving me support and comfort, but not in a positive, good way. This is this is how I'm gonna now. What happens after it numbs the pain? Then it turns on you to where now I don't want to do this, but I got to go do it. But I don't want to do that today. I really need to go hit a gym and get myself together. I'm going to go get a beer. I'm going to go to the bar because the bar is what's giving me comfort. It's giving me support right now because I don't want to feel this pain. And that was a really, really, probably one of the closest seasons, the closest times that I've been facing death myself during that season. Because I ended up, like I said, it took some time, but losing everything. My vehicles, my retirement funds, everything, all my savings, checking account zeroed out. Didn't care about my place, gave away the furniture in the place, in our place that we had. I lived on a boat, literally lived on a boat that we weren't supposed to be on. So it wasn't like I'm paying money to be on this boat, if you get what I'm saying. We're in the marina on the boat. Yeah. So many people tried to intervene and try to talk sense into me, but no, I wasn't receiving it. I wasn't receptive to it because of the anger. And that in turn led me to finally the executive director, associate director, they all got together and got a plane ticket and got me on a plane and got me out of Virginia. And the students that I was over, which was a total of 118 that graduated through the program over the years that we had the program, very good numbers, 100% employment as far as everyone gets employed when you come through that program that I had. And that means from really more, I would say, high tier skill set to not, maybe some struggles and challenges. You're still going to have a job. We're going to find a purpose for you, something that you can do on a day-to-day basis, a reason to get up in the morning. So I was big on that. So I was very proud of what we did with the program, but it was very embarrassing to show up in a parking lot of Walmart at 11 o'clock at night, and you think you're meeting one of your students because he says, I got to see you, Mr. Metcalf. We're worried about you. And I get to the parking lot, and car after car pulls up, and you got about 15 young men out there in a circle around me in the parking lot under the light. I'm looking totally disheveled, and I'm embarrassed, and my head is down. And these young men rallied around me and said, get your chin up. You're going to be even better after you come through this. What do you need? We got you. Here's keys for a car, because we know you gave your cars up. Here's a car. Oh, I can't take your car. Yes, you can. It's a beater. You got to get around, Mr. Metcalf. I was so blown away by how the students became the teachers. And so I know what that feels like. I eventually had to move into the shelter where I was the director of, and I had to stay there. And then from there is where they plane ticket and they got me back to Chicago. So total collapse of everything based on the loss of a wife.
Right. And the intensity of that emotional pain. I mean, it just you can't even give words to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that
it is. And the thing about it, I would share is that, again, while I was fighting, I never felt that was the adrenaline because I was in fight mode. But once I had to give up the case and not pursue it anymore, it hit me, and it hit me in my kitchen one day. I'll never forget it. It hit me in my kitchen that I'll never see her again. I'll never hear the keys in the door. I'll never feel her hand on my leg telling me not to fall asleep on the sofa because she don't want me to complain about my back. I'll never hear that again. And I was looking for it. Sometimes I would jump in the middle of my sleep and say her name, Jan. Jan? Oh, that's right. She's gone. I went through that for a long time, but then one day in the kitchen, I felt it, the sense of all of that grief, unaddressed grief. It felt like a gut shot. And I just doubled over on the kitchen floor, and that's where the grief started. And so for a long time, and I learned then that individuals can mask grief, but it's going to rear its ugly head in some way, shape, or form. It has to be addressed. You cannot run from it. And it took me a lot of counseling. I've done grief share. I've done therapeutic counseling to help me with my grief. But it took a lot of some time for me to get to the point of really relishing the good times and not focusing on the outcome of what happened, because there are just some things beyond our controls. That's that life factor. That's where I tell everyone as I do my counseling and I do my sharing, and you have to be okay with the pivot or shift, because we'll have our plans. We'll think we got A through Z. We got it all figured out. Boom, boom, boom. And life happens. Right. And that's where I like to envision myself like a person on a motorcycle. You have to lean into the curves, brace yourself for the straightaways and the stops, because life, it'll creep up on you in ways that are just not on your radar. I never saw that happening. I never saw me losing her. I thought we would retire. We had our plan. I never saw that. So hence, I never saw NAMI DuPage.
Right.
I never saw it. It wasn't it wasn't on my radar. There wasn't a vision board.
Not the game plan.
With a pen that said NAMI. That wasn't it. I thought we were living in my purpose then.
Mm-hmm. Right. And just like you're talking about, that grief just like hitting you. I mean, it's just like what you were sharing earlier about sharing your story as a superpower. And I would also kind of like throw in there too. It's like, hey, allowing yourself to experience those really unpleasant, uncomfortable thoughts and feelings and emotions, and saying, hey, you know what? In order to get past this, I got to go through it.
Got it.
And I'm going to allow myself, I'm going to put that faith in myself that I can, weather this storm that's coming my way.
Hey guys, this has been a great discussion so far, and I know we're getting into the details of Eric's story. We got a lot still probably to cover, so let's break this into a second session, and we'll have a part 2 in a couple weeks.
Thank you again, Eric, Mark, and everybody listening in on this really critical idea and topic of just finding purpose.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. If you're on the journey to find guidance and insights, subscribe now wherever you find your podcasts. Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery is an educational resource, not a substitute for medical or therapeutic advice. The opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are not necessarily those of NAMI DuPage. Go to namidupage.org/podcast for links to past episodes, show notes, and to submit a question or topic ideas for a future episode. Until next time, be well.